Oh my God. The best times I've had in sessions is when we're doing a serious scene, but like, of course, we've built so much trust and rapport that I'll just say whatever stupid thing that comes up to my head, and we have to stop the scene for a solid 5 minutes because he's laughing. I'm pressing my face to a wall, trying not to cackle because I'm not trying to like, but he's like, so one of the times that this happened was like, I'm leaning in, like he's face down into the table because like it's an easy position for an easy and comfortable starter position for new guests, and I'm just like dragging my sharp nails on his back. He's getting the shivers, and I like lean in close to his ear, and I'm like, "You ready for me to take your behind?" Fuck. Sorry, I can't even keep a straight face now.
Oh my God.
But like
Oh my God. Wow. Nice.
So now whenever I can't not use that joke now. I try not to do it in the middle of the session. I'll do it in the beginning when we're just like talking consent and stuff. I was like, so this is gonna be our first real session. I'll be taking your behind. And it provides that levity that allows us to be comfortable with each other because they're being so vulnerable with us.
So
vulnerable.
Welcome to the Joosi Sex Podcast, where my friends and I have raw, unfiltered, and hilarious conversations about all things sex. I'm Alisa Eddy, the founder and CEO of Joosi Sexual Wellness, where we try the toys and help you find the right one for you. Now, on to the podcast. Okay, welcome to the Joosi Sex Podcast. Today we are going to be talking with a notable dominatrix, and we're going to be talking about sex work. So I want to set intentions at the beginning of this episode. At Joosi, we believe sex work is real work, and our guest is an independent, self-employed sex worker who does legal, sensual body work. We support her right to do so and celebrate the fabulous life she lives because of it. So I just want to make that real clear. All right, so my very special guest is Miss Val Eldritch.
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I am so excited to answer so many of these questions and share my answers because in answering these questions, it made me really think about my practice, and I learned a lot about myself just reading these questions you wrote out for me. So thank you.
Awesome. You bet. I'm excited to have this conversation too. Okay, so first of all, who are you in the world of sex work? What is it that you do?
So my public persona is Val Eldritch. In my personal life, I do actually go as Val. So my personal identity and my work identity have started to meld together. But when I'm called Miss Eldritch or when the Eldritch is mentioned, then I am very much in my Sensual Domina role.
Ah, okay, Sensual Domina. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means?
So the common word that I hear label is Dominatrix. And to me, it is a very powerful label. It is a very powerful role, but it didn't feel like it fit well with my persona, my intentions. And that's why I took on the name Domina or the title Domina, because it's still very much in the vein. I still take power in the dynamic with my clients. But it is a softer role. So I took out that tricks, which makes it that really hard word, but it's still very much a similar role.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so how long have you been doing this?
Officially, according to my taxes, 3 years.
All right.
I have filed taxes 3 years now.
Nice.
And I started in Denver when, 3 years ago, I moved to Denver for a little bit, and I worked with an agency there for 2 months.
Okay, cool. Awesome. And so what were you doing before you got started doing this?
So I have dabbled in a lot of corporate jobs or like business development, pharmaceuticals, and property management all over the place because I really couldn't find where I fit. I was looking for an industry where I could use my skill sets, like this random set of people skills, business acumen, and sales, I guess. And I never really found it in corporate. I felt like I was just pushing buttons or going to meetings, and I never got to express the creativity that I worked so hard to develop in school. And so when I was basically fired from my property management role during COVID, because who needs a property manager when you're not selling any properties?
Fair enough.
Yeah. It was honestly one of the best moments of my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah, because it was freedom. Like I was forced out on my own 2 feet, basically. So it's like, yeah, I don't want to go back to corporate right now. It's COVID. Like, what am I going to do? Yeah.
Oh, you turn lemons into lemonade. All right, perfect. So one of the things that you do in your practice is something called full body sensual massage. Can you tell us what that is?
Of course. So the standard definition that you'll find online, or most people will describe it as, it's a usually 1 hour massage that focuses on sensual touch, and the goal is to elicit a climax by the end of the session. There is no one specific massage style used by practitioners. Personally, I have trained in Ayurvedic massage. I do not have a massage license. I, do not promote myself as a masseuse, but more focus on that sensual touch, the body work aspect of it. And for Ayurvedic, I learned it in India while I was just backpacking around, and I found that really resonated with me because it takes on a very holistic approach to massage. So deep tissue, Swedish sport, it's all about getting the knots out, whereas Ayurvedic was relieving emotional stress as well as the physical stress, because the knots we keep in our body aren't always from like an injury or from like, it's usually like holding tension, like we're stressed, so we're like scrunching our shoulders. So when I started receiving Ayurvedic massage in India, it helped me so much, and I was so excited to share that with people. And mind you, I learned Ayurvedic almost a decade before I started this practice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
It just all started coming together. All these random skill sets that I learned over time just made sense for me to pursue full body sensual massage.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's really cool. So it was a collection of experiences that came to some kind of synergistic moment in your
Exactly.
life.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. Okay, so a big question. What is dominatrix or sensual domina work for you? What does it mean to you?
For me, it's a means to take care of my guests. Like, I genuinely care about the people who come to see me. I saw and learned in an agency many styles of domination because we weren't trained in this agency. It was a bunch of women who came together, and they were given a room to work in, tools to work with, and basically a client list that was not their own. So I would get picked out as like, oh, I'll take the Asian one.
Oh.
And I was like, that's not a good way to pick a
Oh,
dominatrix.
no. Right.
If you don't know your dom's name, it's kind of like
Yeah.
a weird vibe. But learning in that agency allowed me to pick up and see all these different styles at once and just grab what really resonated with me, which was caring for my guests, making them have a safe space to explore these interesting kinks, fantasies, or just types of touch that they might not get in their personal lives that they've always wanted to explore or know that they're deeply missing. And I wanted to do it in a safe and ethical way because I have seen and experienced a range of kinks, or just like consulted with my guests about the kinks that they want to explore. And I like to keep my practice fairly on the softer, safer side. So anything where it puts risk, biohazard risk, health risk, just anatomical risk, because sometimes these restraints or these plays can be really dangerous. So I try to minimize that and focus more on the psychological domination of power exchange. Those are my bread and butter when I dominate.
Okay, amazing. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious how you see your role in terms of people and whether or not they're in a relationship with somebody else. Do you see yourself as being in a relationship with your clients, or?
That is That's an interesting question, actually, because that's making me think about the relationship I have with them. So I have a relationship with them. You have to, right? Because it's such a deeply intimate moment. I have guests who see me every week, sometimes twice a week. And I know everything about their family, their spouse, their childhood. So how can I not have this deep, intimate relationship if I wasn't listening to them? So I do believe, what I actually tell them, this is what I tell them, is that when they're there with me, I love them. Sorry, this is, I haven't said that to anyone other than my clients, but, and it's a different kind of love. It's not like romantic love. It's the love that you, like a mother cares for their child. It's truly like, I want their well-being is so important to me in that time. But it's also a love that has no expectations. If they see me once, if they see me every week, if they see me for the rest of my life, the rest of their life, like, I'm just happy for each moment I have with them, and that I will pour my love into the moments I have with them. And of course, I have set boundaries. I'm like, okay, this is the time we have. I can't pour any more love into you in this session, or I will not have enough for everyone else. I have to be careful with that love. But by allowing myself to love, to care about my guests, I feel like it's made my practice something sustainable for me and something really meaningful for the people that do see me.
That is so interesting. I think that's really cool. I think that is like, that definitely makes it much more sustainable and more fulfilling for you probably at the end of the day, you know?
Because growing up, I was taught that love is just for your family and your direct partner and a monogamous partner at that. It wasn't even to friends. Like my family never said, I love you to their friends. Albeit it was a big family, so there was a lot of people to love in the family. Yeah. But when I started learning through my practice that love comes in many forms and can be shared so easily and so carefully, because like, again, I can't like show too much love because then that's setting a wrong expectation for them. But by caring, it makes it a real experience. Whereas I saw coworkers at the agency who did it purely for money, and some people have to, like they need to do the work for the money, but there was a distinct difference between the people who loved it for the craft and for the love of the guests versus the ones who just saw it as like a clock in, clock out situation.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I can definitely see that. I can say, so this is my first time talking about this on the podcast, but I have actually done a little bit of dominatrix work as an online dom. And so I didn't do it for long. I did it for a few months. It was a really interesting experience. It was fucking fascinating, and I'm really glad I did it.
Yeah.
And I think I can see how having that kind of emotional generosity could make it more sustainable. I didn't get to the point where I had to do that, but it's definitely
hard digitally.
It is hard digitally. It's a very different beast.
Yeah. You can't hold their hands.
You
can't.
Look
in the eyes.
No. Yeah, exactly. It's really different. But yeah, so that is, for the audience, that is something that I have done. That was a really interesting time in my life. And I still identify as someone who's a sex worker because of that. And there's a limited amount of experience and understanding I have, but part of our conversation is going to be a little bit of comparing notes. So yeah, just for everybody to know.
I would actually like to posit that when you do your consent talks, because we talked about it before, we talked about your practice before, your consent talks are a form of love. It's a form of care. Because I've had doms who don't do the consent talk, and the lack of love and care there is so tangible versus when they do care, right?
Yeah.
It's not even just a professional thing. It's like you cared about their well-being.
It's caring about people, I think. So for me, when doing dominatrix work, it was really online. It was really important to me to find out from people what their boundaries were, where they didn't want me to go psychologically, because a lot of the work I did was humiliation work, and that's some deep shit that you're working with. And so it really mattered to me to be triggering the places that they wanted triggered, but not the places that would cut them to the white meat, you know? So I think it's super important. But what I was surprised by, you know, as a person who has some real life kink experience, in doing this online dominatrix work, people were really surprised that I was asking to have consent talks with them. Mm-hmm. They were like, what do you mean? I don't understand. I just want you to tell me what to do. And I had to like patiently explain, yeah, that's not how it works. I want this to be something that's safe for you, and that where you can actually release yourself to the experience if you know that I'm not going to go places that are going to damage you. Right. So that part of it definitely mattered to me for sure. So yeah, I think that's an interesting
How
point.
did you evolve that part of your practice as time went on? Did you refine it?
Mm-hmm. I did. At first, I didn't realize that it was missing, except that I found myself pausing in the middle of a session, be like, hey, is it okay if I go here? Is it okay if I say this? Is it okay if I say that? And they're like, why are you asking me? And I'm like, well, because shit, we didn't have a consent talk, right? Yeah. And so knowing as much as I do in real life shit about consent, I was like, fuck, man, I have to add that in. And it's a little tricky because with online work, they're coming to you and they expect results really fast, and they want you to like start to get them turned on really fast. And so I had to take the risk of being like, we're going to pause and have this conversation and feel this out. And yes, you're going to get charged by the minute for it. But if you can just comply quickly and do what I ask of you, then everything will be fine. But yeah, so it was interesting. That did definitely evolve for me. And I learned at first there wasn't enough of it. Then there was a little bit too much of it. And then I kind of hit like a stride where I felt like I could feel people out a little better. And I developed like certain talking points that I'd be like, what about this? What about this? What about this? Especially when it comes to humiliation. Are these things that are okay with you if I bring them up when you're in a more vulnerable subspace? And they could say yes or no.
Did you find these practices on an online resource at all? Like, where were you learning these things? Or is it just through your own practice?
Just through my own real life practice with consent. And so trying to apply that to the online context I was trying to do the best I could. I did not find examples of other people doing it. I was Googling it and trying.
Same.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So that was my issue, was like, okay, I could easily Google how to spank someone. Yeah. But how do I Google how to, what's it called, talk to them about the emotions behind their spankings? And that's why I applaud you for going digital, because I think it's infinitely harder than meeting someone in person and having that talk, because I'm still struggling through that when I'm just like, I'll do 30-minute coffee dates where I just get to know them as a person. Yeah. And then we have the in-person, in my dungeon session talk. And even then, it's like pulling teeth with some of them.
It is.
Yeah. And like, not in a fun, kinky way either.
No, I agree. I experienced that too. I found that when I would say, for example, when it comes to humiliation, gay stuff is a thing that can be really humiliating for men, and that I find interesting, and that can be a turn on for me to talk about or engage in. And so I would ask, like, is it okay if I bring up this kind of a thing, or tell you that you have to do something that's in this category? And it was really hard for people to say yes or no, because what's tricky is they're coming to you as a dom because they don't want to have to make decisions. However, to ethically engage, we have to get some shit on the record before we start. And so that was a tricky.
Did you get a lot of repeats? Because I feel like you can figure that stuff out slowly if you do one new trigger, or maybe 2 or 3 new triggers each session. But when they're only coming for one session, like, you have 1 hour to fill.
Yeah.
Like, you have to bust out a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you have to be creative. It has to be new. It has to be newer than it was before. I had some repeats, but I didn't do it long enough to have a ton of them. So I think that made it a little extra challenging because neither of us were sure why to invest in the conversation to some extent. Like, are we ever going to talk again? I don't know. But am I comfortable handling someone psychologically when they're in a subspace if I don't know what triggers are a no-go or which ones are like the sweet spot where they want you to hit that and it's like hurts so good, right? Like that's part of it too.
And it sounds like you're conscientious about the power you have. You
Very
genuinely know how much power you have.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of sex workers, I believe, don't understand how much agency and how much power they have in their meetings with these clients. And in one hand, like, they should know, because then that would make them feel a lot more secure, I think. A lot of sex workers I know when I first started didn't know how much power I had, and I felt like I was at the whims of my clients.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, it's important for them to know because we can do a lot of damage.
We can.
We can do a lot of damage.
We can.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that struck me early on that was part of what encouraged me to do this was both I felt like I didn't have a roadmap when I was engaging them. That is more what I'm used to in real life stuff.
Okay, so I have this crazy thought that like, isn't it crazy that there'll be like a dummy's guide to open a hot dog stand, but God forbid, like, we understand how sex work works, the oldest profession in the world. Like, this has been happening for forever, since like the beginning of humankind.
Yes, absolutely.
And yet penguins do it. They'll do a strip dance for pretty shiny rocks.
Yeah.
Like, sex work is a natural process or a natural thing, and the resources out there are so few and far between. And I will acknowledge I am guilty. Like, I am accumulating all this knowledge and I want to share. But the fear of sharing, the fear of putting myself out there, the fear of receiving all that hate and being a public figure for this is tangible.
Totally.
Like, even just posting cute photos of myself, nothing even racy. And the amount of hate from people for having autonomy over my body and my sexuality.
For having the balls to have the courage to show yourself. How dare you?
And then, God forbid, I tell other women they can do the same.
You're the worst. Oh my God. Yeah. It's true. I think that can make you kind of public enemy number one in a lot of people's eyes. And it's really interesting how much our society consumes I'll say like beautiful sexual content of women, and yet also derides the women who make the beautiful sexual content. It's fucking fascinating. And it's like, oh, it's a thirst trap. Oh, they're so thirsty. They're posting a pretty picture of themselves. And yet that picture got 200% more likes and 80% more comments and all that stuff than anything else. So
yeah, I need people to be liking my goofy shit more, okay? The thirst traps, it's for the algorithm.
Yeah.
But the true Val,
come on.
It's like, come on.
Yeah, come on, be here for the true Val.
When I'm like playing with ducks.
Yeah. All right, so I am curious. So we talked a little bit about what you did before, but what more about how you got into sex work? It says that your true start was in college.
Yes. So I am a first-gen immigrant, which means that I was born in the Philippines, moved around a lot while my parents were trying to find good jobs to get us to the West. When we finally got to America, we were very poor. We lived in share houses. We lived in low-income neighborhoods. But my parents really pushed for my education, and I was so grateful for that. But they and I didn't realize how much education cost, especially once college came. So finally, my family was getting to a point where we could have enough. And I was applying for really good colleges, and I was so happy. I was so proud of myself. My grades were good. I'd worked really hard. But we kind of got shafted by the system, because now we were making a little too much for me to get good loans or grant programs. But most of the money my family was making was being sent back to the Philippines to take care of other family members.
Right.
So there was no money for my parents to pay for my college. So my education was entirely my responsibility. So I could have done the 3 jobs thing, or I could have just worked myself to the bone. But I'm a practical person and my grades mattered to me. So really, logically, it made sense for me to enter sex work because of the financial security, the time availability, because I was in honors programs, I was doing sports, I was volunteering, and you can't work jobs and do all those things at once. But if you strip once a month on the weekend, you can make the same amount as any, what's it called? What's the base income? What is it called?
Like
minimum income.
Oh, minimum wage.
Yeah, minimum wage. You
Yeah,
can make as much as a minimum wage person in a single night. So logically, it just made sense. And I was very comfortable with my body. I never really had that same discomfort around sex as a lot of my other Catholic classmates and family friends. And I needed the money. So I started auditioning for go-go clubs around my sophomore year. I met this wonderful club owner who was a woman. It was a woman-owned club. And she made me feel so safe and secure, so that when I was dancing, that I felt safe. I could do this and not feel like it would interrupt my regular life. And she was like, hey, at any time you need to focus on yourself, just let me know. You don't have to work that weekend. She worked with my schedule. She did all these great things. And so that doorway into sex work, into go-go dancing, made me feel so comfortable with the practice. I feel really blessed that I had that experience. And I did pursue other strip clubs after that first one, because that was a dive bar. It was, it was all bikers, and they only played rock music. And don't get me wrong, I figured it out, but boy, howdy. That was an interesting experience trying to shake my ass to like corn.
Oh my God, I can only imagine.
And it was such an, love the owner, love the experience, but the club or the bar itself, let's just say we never turned on the lights, not even to clean it. We did not want to see what it was.
Damn.
So I did level up my game. I worked at like other clubs in New Jersey over time, raising my income as well, because bigger clubs, better money, and also, but higher expectations, right? You have to have better lingerie. You have to have better heels. You have to dance better. So as I leveled up my sex work experience, so did my opportunities in the sex industry or stripping industry. I even got to work at Bada Bing, that club, the strip club from The Sopranos.
Which is so fucking cool.
Yeah, it was like not a dream come true. I didn't dream of working there, but let's just say that was a really fun experience.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome.
I wish I could put my sex work resume.
Yeah, right. Bada bing. That's so cool. I love it.
And after I finished college, I did leave stripping behind because it was supposed to just tide me over. But that first entry into sex work, that was such a good experience. Not Washington, mind you. Do not strip in Washington. But that introduction made me feel so comfortable in my body, and made me feel more powerful than I had ever felt in any other aspect of my life, from martial arts to school to sports. Like, I felt like I had true agency when I was up on that stage, when I was controlling conversations, when I was taking people to VIP rooms. And you never forget that high. Yeah. And I think that's what made it easy for me to start my own practice, because I think not a lot, but I do think if someone has had zero experience in sex work, it's easy to just join an agency, because in the agency I was with for doming and FBSM, none of those other practitioners had sex work experience before, albeit they were really young. I was one of the oldest.
Yeah.
At 28, I was like, they were like, "You're still working this?" I was like, "I hope so." But they were like 19 to 22 was the average age in that agency. And it was bananas to me how like they were being pushed into that much agency right away because they were trying to run their own practices basically as independents renting a room from the agency.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out so well, unfortunately. The agency did fall apart a few months after I left.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, huh. Okay.
Yeah. Agencies are difficult to run.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are much higher risk than a private practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Let me tell you a story. I was really excited to buy a new clit sucking toy, so I went to the world's largest online sex toy retailer and I found hundreds of options with no indication which ones are quality and which ones are right for me. So I had to make my best guess. I ordered the toy, got it in the mail, super excited to try it, and bummer. It's way too strong, even on the lowest setting. Turns out I can't even use it, and I wasted $80. So I throw it in my nightstand, and a couple months later, I look to discover that it has actually melted into another sex toy in my nightstand. I was so mad. I decided to start my own sex toy company, Joosi. At Joosi, we sell a highly curated selection of body-safe sex toys, and we test them so that we can give you all the deets about whether or not it's right for you, such as how strong or gentle it is, how loud is it, and how easy is it to operate. So support this podcast and buy your next sex toy at getjoosi.com. That's GETJOOSI.com. 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 I can say for me how I got into it. I was looking to make more money, and so for me, I have had this sense since I was like maybe even as early as late high school, but at least in my early 20s, that men wanted that from me, that they want me to dominate them. Like I can,
Not just
I don't
men.
know. Yeah, not just men. True. And I don't know how to describe it because I didn't even have the language for it when I first started noticing it, but I noticed it and I was like, huh. Okay, that's interesting. I can see what this person wants from me. I'm not a little like, I don't quite understand why me getting bitchy is turning them on. But I didn't get it yet. And I don't know. I don't know what that is or what that was or why that is something that so many people kind of like saw and sought out from me. But I suspect it's because I can be a very outspoken and opinionated person for a woman. And maybe that triggered the desire to be dominated or something like that. But
you're also tall.
I'm also tall.
You're also really tall, right?
Yes.
5'9". 5'9".
Yeah. So I'm tall. I'm dark. You
have the aesthetics.
Yeah, I have kind of the look. I like to wear black a lot. But I don't know. It was just something that I knew that people wanted from early. And I was looking to make more money. So what I did was I decided to try out a platform that specialized in kink for online dom work. And the reason I did that was because my personality, I really don't like people telling me what to do. I don't respond well to that at all. And I'm also not much of a people pleaser. And so from the friends I had that were doing like cam work and stuff like that, I knew that was a lot of what got involved. Yeah. So I was like, well, if I do dom work in a place where people are specifically looking for doms, and that's what they're coming there for, then I can be more assured that I'll have situations popping off that I can deal with, that I want to deal with, that I don't have to just hang up on. So that was sort of how that began. So because my style of doming is not like you have your Sensual Domina, mine is a little different.
I think yours is more akin to the traditional dominatrix style, right? With the humiliation.
It might be.
And just overpowering them. Lots of black.
Yeah, lots of black. And the humiliation is something that I specialize in for better or worse. And, knowing that I needed to be in a place where people would understand that type of domination and that it wasn't a mommy dom type situation. It wasn't a sensual dominatrix type of thing. And so I chose a platform that specialized in this type of work. And I think that was really smart. And I think that's the reason that I was able to continue with it for a little while like I did, because I didn't get the kind of mismatch that I was expecting a lot of if I had done other types of camming.
Yeah, the way you market and how you advertise yourself really sets the tone for your clientele. I made the mistake of, no, I don't think it's a mistake, a learning experience. I had a learning experience in which I posted content on Instagram where it suggested I was a different style of sex worker than I am currently.
Okay.
And it wasn't like a direct, like, oh, I do this. But it was this idea where I am softer. And then I started getting requests because I have an application process. I had applications coming in, and part of it is they have to explain what they want from me. So they have to set the tone like early. And some of what they were asking was not in line with what I usually offer. And I was like, are these guys not reading my website? And they weren't. Like, they'll see the first piece of content, make a judgment call, and then disregard everything else just because they want what they want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, coming from like branding is one of my specialties in the business world. And so this was something I picked up on right away, that this was going to be super fucking important to me, not having to reject 89% of the people that came to me. Was I had to find the right place and make sure that I represented what I actually do and who I actually am. So that was definitely key. And it's tricky because some little small things can misbrand you in the eyes of people. Yeah, which is bananas.
So I'm surprised that even though it was a kink specific platform, people were still not used to that consent talk that you were having with them. That's bananas to me.
Yes, I was also surprised because I thought, well, here, at least I know how things go.
Yeah.
But even there, people were really like very surprised and sometimes put off by having to have the conversation about what was good or not good for them in their experience. Well, and, I think I can relate to this a little bit from an earlier version of myself sexually, who was afraid to say yes to things I wanted sexually, because that meant admitting to desire, admitting to this kind of carnal nature. And if someone wants to be dominated and they can say specifically what they want and don't want, then they're really admitting what they're setting themselves up for. And I think that there can be some shame in that, and I think it can be a little scary.
Yes. I definitely share that fear of sharing myself. Been reading a lot of books and going to a lot of therapy, and I know part of my fear is from my parents, because coming from old world, children were seen, not heard. It's still the case now as an adult. Like, my feelings and my emotions and my desires are always second to what the family wants. Especially coming from that culture where family is everything. What an individual does is not as important as how it impacts the family. And that's so different in the Western world. And so it baffles me that Westerners are still having that issue of sharing themselves in a world that like idolizes independence.
Totally, where individuality is like above all other values. Yeah,
and it's still not being solved. This ability to share our true selves and our true desires. So it's like I felt like I was able to see through that facade faster, because I'm like, oh, okay, wait, no, you're having the same issues as me. It doesn't matter if you're Western or from old world. You can't share your feelings. Oof.
I know, right?
Yes.
It's fascinating.
Or desires, specifically desires.
Specifically desire.
We're getting better with feelings.
We're making some movement there, but I think just admitting to even having desire is still like a taboo thing, which is fucking ridiculous.
One of my favorite stories from college is I remember just hanging out with a bunch of girls, and one of my favorite girlies, she's very outspoken and very comfortable talking about it. She's like, y'all like getting choked? And it was dead fucking silent. And I was just like, maybe. But I was so nervous to say anything. And she was like, okay. And then the subject was dropped. But like thinking about it, like that, I don't have many regrets in my life. But she was trying to open a dialogue with us. And none of us felt comfortable. We were juniors in college. Like we were in a safe place. We were with people we loved. It was all females. And we still didn't feel comfortable talking. Albeit, she just came out of the fucking, y'all like getting choked.
It's a little out of the blue. Maybe you want to like work your way up
where
there.
it's like, hey, you like holding hands. You like getting throttled. Like,
yeah.
But I do like that in my community now, in the friends that I keep now, I can say something like that just out of the blue. And they're like, they'll be comfortable saying yes or nay.
Yeah, which is amazing. I think finding, especially if you're a sex positive person, finding a community that shares your values is one of the most empowering experiences of my life, which is a big part of why I do this podcast, is because I want other people to find that sex positive community that shares their values. Even if you live in the middle of rural Kentucky and there's not a lot of people like us around you, we're still out here and we're still here with you.
And I also want to emphasize that I've learned that sex positive doesn't mean promiscuous, which is like one of the fears I had when I was younger was like, oh, if I start sharing what I like, that I like sex, are people going to think I'm sleeping with everyone? And like personally, I've been monogamous most of my life. Only recently have I started exploring the poly space after years of seeing how well it worked out for my friends and seeing how well it resonated with me. But then being afraid like, oh, with what I do, is that going to make me even less likable? Because being a sex worker already I felt like was a possible red flag, which now I'm so proud to talk about it. Like, so grateful that I'm invited to talk on your podcast about being a sex worker. I was even telling like my partners and close friends, like, hey, I'm about to go to this podcast to talk about stuff. Do you want to go over my answers and questions with me so that like I can feel ready? And they were so hyped for me. And to feel that outpouring of love for what I do and who I truly am, has been so helpful to my personal growth and like my personal self-worth and in turn what I can share with my guests, because I know that the happier I am, the kinder I am to myself, the kinder I can be to everyone else. Also because then I get less bitchy when they like cancel a meeting. I'm like, you know what, that's fine, I'm just gonna go watch a movie. Like, all right, I'm gonna put on my pajamas now.
Just to have that support for where you're coming from and who you are and what you're doing is huge. I think that's bananasly huge. So I'm curious, in this line of work, what are some of your favorite moments?
I would have to say that reading reviews, because I love the written word. I am a visual learner. So people can say things to me and I take it to heart. I like to listen. But when I read things, it actually like, I see the piece of like, close my eyes. I can see the words like being written out in my behind my lids. So when people take the time to write out how they felt with their time with me or the experiences that we shared, like, or they'll even write on like cards how much they appreciate their time with me. Like I have a box of all these thank you cards that clients have written to me over the years, and that's some of my favorite presents, because then whenever I'm having like a low time, if the season is slow, if I just need a pick-me-up, if I'm feeling good and I just want to read stuff, I can just go through all these written words, and these are tangible memories for me to like carry with me. And then hopefully one day I can actually put them all up on a wall after I finish my practice and just like frame them up so people can see how much I loved actually having my practice.
That's amazing. That's so affirming, right? To have people acknowledge directly to you the positive impact that your work has had on them is huge.
and it gives me a guide of what I do, and no, it gives me a direction of what's really helpful and impactful for my guests. So if they share that, because it's hard to share in person, like usually they're like, oh, yeah, okay. Like if like twitching, they're having a good time. They are not coherent, and I'm like, chef's kiss. No but later when they're able to write it out, when they're able to think through it and share each thoughtful thing that I did that really meant so much for them, then I know that this is helpful. Maybe this isn't. And I can direct my energy into practices that continue to make me a better provider.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest gift for me, is making my business better.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure. Making your business better, but also knowing that you're making people's lives better. I think no matter what kind of work you're doing, if you can find a way to get the feedback from people that you're actually making an improvement in people's lives. Oh my God. That's everything. You could be working at fucking Microsoft. You could be a dominatrix. You could be at McDonald's, whatever the fuck it is. If you can hear from people how you're making a difference in their life, it's huge. It's a total game changer. I think for me, the favorite thing, the thing I enjoyed the most. So I have a little bit of real life kink experience before doing the dominatrix work online. But what I noticed was that so many of the clients were really self-conscious of their kinks. Really like afraid to talk about it. Even with me, even when they came to a kink site to talk to a dominatrix about something that is a domination related kink, they were ashamed and they felt weird about it. And I think one of my favorite things was being able to reassure them, like, actually, I know a lot of people who are just like you in real life.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like you're actually not that weird. And I kind of get it. Like, whatever their thing was, like, I would try to put myself in their shoes and be like, I can see why this specific thing is sensual to you. And I think one of my favorite examples was one of my regulars that I had who was a client with a glove fetish. And so he really wanted to see me like put on and take off gloves. And I'm a burner, so I've got a shit ton of costumes. So I had gloves to begin with. But it was really interesting. He was so self-conscious and felt weird about even asking for it. And I'm like, out of all the things that I would expect potentially someone online to ask me to do, you asking me to put gloves on is like so low down on the list of like anything creepy or bad or that has any bad connotation to it. But he had a lot of self-consciousness, and it, you know, we talked a bit about that, and it seemed to really help him, for me to reassure him, like, this is like a low level kink. This is not.
Did you guys go into why that kink developed for him?
I feel like I did, but I can't remember what the answer was anymore.
Because sometimes when you go into the stories of how their kink developed, it's so beautiful. So I had a similar experience. This is actually one of my favorite experiences. Is another thing that I love is when guests bring gifts that are actually kink toys for them. Because then it gives me a direction of where to go. I don't get offended easily. Like, if they bring me something I'm not going to use, I'm like, that's nice. Let me put it on the shelf of scary things that we're going to scare future guests with. Like, someone brought in like a massive like elephant dick sized pink dildo, and I was like, we're going to put that over there. I don't think you want to use this. And he was like, maybe. Okay, we did use it. We're not using it again. Back to the story. So I had a guest bring nylon stockings, and they like hid it behind their back. It was so cute. And he's like, I got you a present. It's you don't have to wear it if you don't want to. And he was like whispering, and he was hiding. He was making himself smaller. And I was like, show me the thing. And then he brings out these two gorgeous, and he sized me perfectly, dude. Like these nylon stockings, very high end, lace, beautiful. I was like, fuck yeah, give that over here. And he's like, if I pay you extra, can you wear it? And I was like, fuck yeah! And like over time, like as he would come, he would always gift me new things, and I got really into it because I saw how excited it made him. And then we even got into why he really liked it. It's because he grew up in a time where nylon stockings were really popular, and women at that time wore it all the time. And nowadays, women don't really wear nylon stockings, so he misses that. And
they're coming back though.
They are.
I'm seeing the
I dig
chicks like
'em.
in the middle of summer wearing like jean shorts with nylons on, and I'm like,
Comfier than you think. Comfier
Yeah?
than you think.
Really?
Yeah, because
Okay.
when it's cold out, it keeps you warm if you get the thick ones. But for the thin ones, it keeps you from chafing.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And
okay.
it's not like a full pant, so it's not so heavy.
Yeah.
So as we continued to explore this kink with him, as I got more invested into his story, I felt my creative juices just flowing until one point I was like, let's get fucking weird. He's like, how weird? And I was like, get me a full body nylon suit. And he was like, what? And I'm like, it's still on Amazon. It's just on Amazon. And then this thing is wild. You crawl in through the neck hole and you think you're not going to fit. It's like Spanx, but you just like crawl all the way in. And then you just look like a Barbie doll afterwards. So it's like those full body, like
a latex, full body kind of thing, but nylon.
So comfy.
Oh,
so
nice.
freaking comfy. And it was great because we just had this session where I cuddled him in a full body nylon suit, and this dude lost his shit.
Oh.
He was like, this is the best fucking day. Oh. And I was like, yay! let's make you happy about this. Let's go deeper into it. I don't just have to wear it this one way. We can explore your kink and enjoy it together. And I may or may not have a nylon fetish now.
Right. He gave you a fetish.
He gave me a fetish,
he gave
dude.
You a fetish. I fucking love that.
Yeah.
I love the tables have turned. I fucking love that. I know that, like, for me, there was something I learned about when I got started, which is that a lot of people are into cock shaming and cock ratings. And at first I was like, what? People pay you to do that?
I know,
like,
right?
I was kind of blown away. But then, so I like to make jokes. I have a sense of humor, and I thought it was so fun to have the opportunity to combine this like dominatrix work with a sense of humor that people really enjoyed, where it was like you could say something kind of terrible. It's kind of like you're roasting their dick, right? That was sort of how I approached it. And I thought it was really fun. And I didn't expect to have that kind of levity in dominatrix work. I was expecting...
Oh my God. The best times I've had in sessions is when we're doing a serious scene, but like, of course, we've built so much trust and rapport that I'll just say whatever stupid thing that comes up to my head, and we have to stop the scene for a solid 5 minutes because he's laughing. I'm pressing my face to the wall, trying not to cackle because I'm not trying to like, but he's like, so one of the times that this happened was like, I'm leaning in, like he's face down into the table because like it's an easy position for an easy and comfortable starter position for new guests, and I'm just like dragging my sharp nails on his back. He's getting the shivers, and I like lean in close to his ear, and I'm like, "You ready for me to take your behind?" Fuck. Sorry, I can't even keep a straight face now.
Oh my God.
But like
oh my God. Wow. Nice.
So now whenever I can't not use that joke now. I try not to do it in the middle of the session. I'll do it in the beginning when we're just like talking consent and stuff. I was like, so this is gonna be our first real session. I'll be taking your behind. And it provides that levity that allows us to be comfortable with each other because they're being so vulnerable with us.
So vulnerable.
So
Totally. I agree. I feel like one thing, at first, I thought I had to be super serious all the time. And then I was tired of being serious. So then
It's
I was
exhausting.
cracking jokes all the time. And then I found most of the time they appreciated the jokes. And I learned like when to and when not to. I mean, I'm sure I could still refine that. But yeah, they're being so fucking vulnerable that if you can give a little bit of levity, it's such a relief, I think, to everybody, to both sides, to have a little bit of lightness brought into it.
And God forbid they're so serious, because I've had guests who I'm like, I might not be the right fit for you. And I do not take offense to that because I love having jokes. I like laughing during my sessions. Yes, there is a period of time in which I will be absolutely very serious and involved. But as we're ramping up, as we're building a rapport, I want them to know that they're going to get the authentic Val, and authentic Val talk shit.
Yeah. Like, I'm really going to be here with you.
Yeah.
And that includes a little bit of shit talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, if I hid that part of myself, I feel like it wouldn't be truly authentic to who I am as a person and as a provider.
And then when you're not being authentic, the work is exhausting.
Oh my God.
Yeah. When you can just be yourself, it's like time fucking flies. But if you're not being authentic, it's just like, oh my God.
Yeah. And then like how I like to think that they know when we're being authentic, but do they know when we're not? I feel like they do. So like as soon as I feel that vibe, I have a talk with them. I've had this talk with a handful of guests now where it's not a complete drop, because that's like, I care about them. I want them to be okay. I want them to have what they need. But I'm like, I am not the person that can give that to you. I'm very comfortable having that talk. And then I share resources with them. I'm like, here are other providers. Here are websites or resources in which you can find others that might be a better fit for you, because I do want the best for them.
Yeah.
And if I'm not the best for them, then I don't want them wasting their time or resources with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense. And it's, again, like, when you can be yourself in the sessions, then it's a lot less, it doesn't feel as much like work.
Yeah. I'm also really lucky. I will acknowledge the fact that over the 3 years, I have managed to manage my finances so that I have runway, I feel comfortable, and that now I work a lot for the craft of it. So I'm not living month to month like I know many sex workers struggle with, because how do you manage your finances when it's all cash, right?
Yeah.
But my experience in corporate finances have helped me with that part of my business. So when I don't feel like I'm having a good time, or if I'm too tired, I can step back. I can make sure that all my sessions are good for me, good for Val. And I know that's a privilege.
It is, but
it's
it's a privilege that you've worked hard to create.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm curious, we've talked a lot about the fun. I'm curious for you, what are the downsides that you've experienced in being a dom?
Ooh. Yeah, there's definitely downsides. Most people would think it's safety, and I agree with them. But personally, if you're asking me directly, right?
Yeah.
It's the emotional labor. Because, like, even if I'm having a good time, which, like, 80 to 90% of the time, and who can say that about their jobs, right? Who likes their job most of the time? I like folding my sheets. I love doing laundry. I love doing my books. I'm like, I'm gonna do my books today. Like, I get excited, except for paying the taxes. That's not fun.
That part.
But the emotional labor is, I find, one of the most insidious aspects of this job, because even if you're having a good time, you're still I'm still holding space for people.
Always.
I am still holding the memories of their pain, of their fear, of their insecurities, and I hold that for them, and I help dispel it. But that takes so much out of me, especially if I'm truly caring about them, if I truly show them my love, if I show them that they are not alone, and to be patient as they process, as they repeat the same thoughts over and over again. Because most people take dozens of times to go through a thought or a painful subject before they can really fully process all of it. And as someone who can't hear things twice without getting stressed out, like, that is the stressful part for me. I'm like, we talked about this already, but yeah, let's talk about it again. And unlike physical exhaustion, where you can feel the muscle ache, emotional exhaustion is like, oh, it's harder to wake up today. Oh, like, I feel a little sluggish. But it's not muscles. It's just like, oh, I can't sleep right now. Why can't I sleep? My life is going well, but their lives aren't going well. I'm thinking about what's going on in their lives. I'm thinking about, because people share such intimate things with me. The amount of my clients that have chronic illness or don't have much more time, I actually get a decent amount of those people, and they share that with me, and I hold that for them. And I can't share with anyone because I do believe in discretion. So, like, whatever clients tell me, I keep it to myself. I become a confidant for them.
Yeah.
And it's such a big responsibility. And I'm grateful for it, but I know that I need to take so much time for myself, like taking sabbaticals, taking long weeks just to be alone. Because if I don't, like, my body shuts down from that emotional labor.
Yeah.
Like, my brain fog gets really heavy. Like, I can't lift my hands. And people are like, oh, what's wrong? Like, your muscles work fine. Or like, I'll go to the doctor and they'll say, everything works fine. But that emotional pain can't be measured by an x-ray. It's just that you keep it in your heart. And I like to think I have a pretty big heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you must if you're able to hold enough of it.
Yeah.
To
And it's
cause
not a
that.
genetic anomaly.
Yeah.
Just a medical mystery.
It's not cardiomyopathy. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that is very true. I think you have definitely had longer lasting and more connected experiences with clients than I ever did, hands down. I will say, to me, it's so much more work than it seems like it is. It's just a lot more work than it seems like it would
Well,
be.
online is a lot.
It is. It's its own thing. It's
Yeah.
like a constant blitz, and like you have to be like really fast and rapid with like your response and like your ability to create a fantasy for them and like to get things kicked off. And that's your creative force. That's your creative energy that you have to like put forth and have out there all the time. And I found myself trying to systemize it, which I did to some benefit, but like not as much as I wanted.
And online, it's hard to charge that bespoke experience.
Right.
Because in person, I'm charging a bespoke price. Like, people are, not everyone, but I've actually had a lot of flack online. They're saying, oh, this is what she's providing. Because, like, I tend to provide softer dom or in FBSM. My rates are on the higher end. And they're like, she's not even doing like full escorting, and she's charging as much as escorts. And I'm like, but it's a bespoke experience. Like, you're not just here for physicality, you're here for emotional, you're here for mental stimulation.
Yeah.
You're here to be remembered. It's not a revolving door. I remember everyone who comes to see me. Whereas online, like, it sounds like you're providing them a bespoke experience, but it's so hard to charge that price.
You can't. Yeah,
you
they don't
can't.
know.
They
You
won't
can't
do
be
it.
Like, hey, P.S. You should pay me more because la 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 la. I mean, you hope that you get tipped more and stuff. But
Oh my god.
but I mean, that part of it was hard. Just trying to have the creative energy to do that. And then the other thing for me, because the kind of doming I was doing was like full glam, so I had to be
Yes.
full glam anytime that I was doing it, which I am more like most days of the week I don't wear makeup and my hair is in a ponytail, like, for sure. And so having to get all done up like that was sort of a pain in the ass.
How long did it take you?
I've gotten better at it. So it used to take an hour and a half.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, to do like full hair and makeup. And now I can do it in an hour.
Wait, but an hour and a half of prep, and then how many hours of sesh would you have?
Like 3-ish.
Okay. So you would try to block it.
Yeah, I would block it for sure. Yeah. Because otherwise it wouldn't be worth the prep time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of prep.
Yeah. But I would do the prep. I would do my own like photo shoots and video shoots on my own before going online, and then I would go online.
Yeah.
So I could get as much out of that one hair and makeup as possible. But that part of it is kind of a pain in the butt.
Because that's usually a full team.
Yeah.
I've heard that some high-end escorts will actually have a team, and they'll hire makeup artists and hair people for before their long work days, and they'll try to cram everything into one day.
It makes sense.
They'll work only 2 or 3 days, whereas how many days a week were you working for online?
2 or 3 a week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's all you can do if you're doing that much prep.
Exactly, because it's just too much work. Because I was busy as fuck doing other things as well. So yeah.
You busy?
Yeah, me? Who, me?
You? Us?
Yeah.
Look at us.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think there's actually something interesting to talk about here, which is something that is called the hierarchy.
Yes.
Which is the hierarchy of sex workers. And we were talking about this a little bit when we were eating before the podcast. And Essentially, the hierarchy ranks different sex workers in terms of their perceived, the way that, Val, that you put it was their perceived agency, which I think is
That's how I perceive it. That's how I rank, but I think the more common way is status.
is status or value.
Value.
Is that the intent is we use your agency to determine your value, right? So we have everything from, I think, the highest end girlfriend experience escorts all the way down to...
Do you think they have high agency, though?
You know, I think it really depends. I think it depends on not just, I mean, a lot of them work independently. So in one sense, yes, but it's possible to work independently and not have agency.
Yeah.
For sure in this line of work. So I think it's tricky. It's hard to know, but they're perceived.
Because when you say girlfriend experience, to me, that's sounding like sugar baby territory, which is sex work.
Yeah.
Sex work.
Which is also sex work. Yes. Yep.
Pay your taxes.
Yeah.
No, seriously. A lot of sugar babies don't realize that that's taxable income. After a certain amount, it is not a gift. It is income.
$10,000.
Yep.
That's the limit.
Yeah. More from your parents, though. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Right.
Daddy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's... Should we just start? So how do we want to rank it?
Yeah. So we kind of talked a little bit about this, but I think what's most interesting to me is the need to rank it, but that we do have. So
I can go into why I need to.
Yeah, tell me. I'm curious.
So I have one practice, right? However, they are two different sides of the same coin, where the FBSM is my very soft side, and then my Domina side is the one where once I've built enough trust, they can flip that coin to that other side and see that darkness that I want to share with them, but they have to earn that. Because for me, that like intense power side can consume me and can consume others. I've seen it happen. I've seen it in my personal life. So I am very controlled about it professionally. And when I share my sex work with others, when I mention FBSM, when I first started mentioning it, I noticed that there was a lot of stigma, judgment, mostly because I was Asian.
Oh,
because
okay. So by the way, FBSM is full body sensual massage. That's what we're referring to.
And when Asians are associated with massage or erotic massage, people think of parlors, those massage parlors and a strip mall. And that is absolutely a valid form of sex work. But that was not my style of sex work. But because of my race, I was immediately relegated to like, oh, that's what you do. Which parlor do you work at?
Oh.
And it's like, I've worked really hard to have my own like high-end Bellevue apartment and like craft this like website and this persona, and then to just immediately be judged like that was so painful and just like gut punch. So I started introducing myself as my other role first, Domina, and the respect was there. I didn't have to explain further.
Yeah.
It was like, you, a Domina? At first they wouldn't believe because I tend to be like a bubbly person and like wear a lot of pinks in my personal life. So the main judgment was, you, but you're so tiny. And then I would like do something dark to them, and they're like pull their hair and just hold them the right way, and they're like, okay, you can dom me, mommy. And I was like, you'll get an invoice later.
Yeah.
But that I personally felt that judgment doing the same exact work. It's the same practice, and yet just that title shift was an immediate judgment shift in peers or other providers.
Yeah, you know, I will say, like, again, I have a lot less experience than you do. But when I was doing online dom work, and I was very open about it with friends and my community, you know, I was like, support your local sex worker. Come
Yeah.
see me.
Oh, God, did our friends ever see you?
Certainly, yeah.
Oh, wow.
In some ways, yes.
Nice.
Yeah, but I did not really encounter what I perceived to be disrespect for it. I think sometimes there was people being surprised and that, but it did seem to be something that garnered respect, which I wasn't actually expecting necessarily when I got started. And so I'm thankful that I was lucky enough to have something that I specialize in that people give more respect to. But I just as well could have been someone who specializes in other things that don't get as much respect.
Yeah. And what's important, though, is you've had that experience as a dom of getting that respect, but you still believe that it's your responsibility to share this knowledge with others and to raise that level of respect for all sex workers.
For sure.
Because I've had experiences where sex workers look down on sex workers.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, why are we doing this? We're in the same boat. Like, some of us might be like at the bow, some of us might be lower like the Titanic, but we're on the same boat. If this boat crashes, if laws pass that are not helpful to us, if we continue to be stigmatized, if we continue to be targeted by very hurtful like people, I don't want to go too dark, but yeah, if we are not supporting each other, who's going to support us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it just comes from shame. I think that if you're doing sex work and you have a deep sense of shame about it, what will help buoy you through that shame is the belief that what you're doing is better than somebody else.
Oh God, yeah.
And so it's really tempting to fall into that. Well, I'm just a sugar baby. That's not sex work. It's absolutely sex work.
Oh, I do want to mention that little tidbit that we thought that stay-at-home housewife can be a form of sex work.
Can absolutely be a form of sex work. No
Can
question.
corroborate as a former stay-at-home housewife. Yeah, that was work. It was not fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It can totally be.
Yeah.
So many things can be sex work. And I think it's interesting when we're trying to split hairs and rank above or below others. It's really the best for everybody involved if we all just are a united front and say that the bottom line is fucking bodily autonomy. Is that this is my body. I get to do with it what I want. If that means I make a profit off of it, it means I make a profit off of it. And that is my fucking right. And that is what all sex workers have in common, from everything from high-end escort to the people walking the streets to the sugar babies to the professional dominatrixes, is to say, this is my body and I have the right to make money off of it. And God knows we do.
Yes, because how are we any different? How is selling time with touches with me different than a construction worker selling time of carrying heavy things?
I agree. Exactly. It's the same thing.
It's physical labor.
Your physical body is being exploited to make money. It's exactly the same thing. I think it's
just a different part of the.
Yes. It's just a different part. But I think that is a huge thing that it really is important for us to be mindful of, not ranking different kinds of sex work against each other. So not pitting sex workers against each other, because even if you are a sex worker and you're not doing it yourself, if you're outside of the field and you're doing it and you're saying, well, my friend's a sex worker. Well, she's not one of those, but she's, this fancy kind.
What they call them? Pick-me girls?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I keep hearing about this and I keep seeing it on my feeds. Is it a girl or a person that wants to be chosen or wants to have attention by putting down other people? Is that a pick-me?
I guess so. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's my understanding.
Because I've heard boys called pick-me girls.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, okay, you tell them, sis. I don't know what it means. I can't keep up with the Gen Zs, but do my best.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about how this sex work, interacts with our personal sex life.
Ooh, okay.
And for me, one thing that changed after doing online dominatrix work was that it cheapened male sexual attention dramatically for me.
In a good way or a bad way?
In an absolutely empowering, I don't fucking care anymore way.
Nice.
Yeah, it just became something that was like a faucet that you can turn on or off. And you always kind of knew that just as a person living in this world. But I think it was so much more clear doing the online sex work.
Because we're brainwashed to think that it's necessary for
We're
our survival.
brainwashed to think that it's a scarce resource, and it's not.
The streets are littered with dicks.
Yes, the streets are literally littered with dicks. Male attention is not a scarce resource. You do not need to be like changing the way that you live for it, bending yourself over for it, literally or figuratively, if you don't want to.
Yeah.
And
You can cut that out mid-stroke.
Yeah, you can cut it out mid-stroke, as we've discussed previously. You can stop mid-stroke. But I did notice that, like, how much I cared about presenting super sexy when I would go to a party changed.
Yes.
After doing this work, because I was like, whatever. If I want that kind of attention, I know how to get it.
I have never worn less makeup than starting this practice. Yes, I am glammed up.
Yeah,
however,
you look great.
it's for the camera and for moi.
Yes.
And for our wonderful host here.
Yes.
I want it to be pretty for her.
You look beautiful.
But after my second year, actually, no, after I returned from my sabbatical, after 6 months of not wearing any makeup while in the jungle, because you just can't. You can't wear makeup in Costa Rica. Yeah. You look gnarly. Albeit I did tattoo eyebrows now on Chef's Kiss.
Nice.
Very happy about
they
this
look great.
decision. Thank you. I have like 6 hairs to my name. But when I came back from my sabbatical, I tried this crazy thing out. I just didn't wear makeup for my sessions because it was all my regulars. When I first came back, I didn't see anyone new. I was just like, I'm going to work on the wait list and make sure that all my loyal fans are the ones that like I shower with my time and availability. And if anything, they were like, you look great. You look so tan because I stopped whitewashing myself. It's a Filipino thing. And I felt so confident with my own face. It was wild. I never thought I could experience that working in sex work because as like a former stripper, you had to do your makeup. The club almost demanded if you didn't wear makeup, you would get like booted back into the dressing room and and other people would force makeup on you because we didn't have agency as strippers. But as a personal like solo provider, boy, howdy, can I finally do my face the way I want to as God intended.
Yes.
With sunscreen and maybe some chapstick.
Yeah. That's so cool. I think, that's just, there's something really empowering about really, truly knowing it's not a scarce resource to get male attention, and you know how to get it when you want it. And if you don't necessarily want it or you're already getting it for other reasons, you don't have to participate in all the decorative actions, which I enjoy.
Yeah, it's still
but
fun.
Not all the time. I don't want to have to do it.
Yes, it's the have to do it that makes it painful. And also that learning that it's so much other stuff that we provide that's actually getting that male attention. Like when you realize it was your personality, your strong, domineering personality, and your take no shit attitude, that's what was really attractive to them. Wow. You could lean into it.
I can do that without wearing a corset.
Yeah. And you didn't have to be a soft girly. He was like, oh, is this okay for you? Is this okay for you? No, it's okay for me. So we're going to do it this way.
Yeah.
Boy, howdy, is that nice.
I know. It is so nice. It really is.
Yeah.
I think that's a hugely like awesome and interesting, unexpected.
And I think it helps that we're surrounding ourselves with these women who have learned this lesson because it is a long journey.
It is.
It's and I've been surrounded like with women who were insecure, who depended on male attention to survive. As a former serviceman wife, I was surrounded by women whose livelihoods were based on their husbands' livelihoods, and the insecurity and the cutting of other women was rampant and almost like mandatory to be part of some of those groups.
Oh no.
And I don't know if it was just my group because of course I haven't seen every, but when those women didn't have agency, when they didn't have their own income, when they felt so powerless, I have never experienced as much hate and anger than in those times and with those people.
Interesting.
Yeah, because even if someone doesn't have a lot of money, if they feel like they have control over their life, they can make the best of what they have. But if where you live, who you spend time with, how many kids you have are dependent on another person in 2020,
yeah,
that's bananas.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like, you're getting all of this media saying, oh, you can be a strong independent woman, you can have it all, you can work, you can have kids, you can do everything. But if you're not doing it, what does that say about you, right?
Right. And by the way, who wants to do everything?
Who wants to do everything?
I don't want to do everything.
No.
I don't. I think it's bullshit. Having it all is the most bullshit idea that has ever been sold to women in the fucking world. But we can talk about that on another podcast. But I'm curious. So in terms of doing sex work and having partners, how have you been able to figure out if your partners were going to be accepting, or like if this was something that you could broach with them?
So I've only been doing this for 3 years. So I haven't had many partners that I've had the opportunity to share this with. When I first started, it was terrifying. I was like, oh, this is a red flag for me. This is going to be a detraction of my value as a partner. Growing up in monogamous cultures in the Philippines, where relationships aren't recognized until it's a marriage. Like my parents will not recognize a boyfriend.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So they didn't even recognize my husband. I'm going to call that. Like this guy? And I was like, yeah. So having those relationships not be recognized made me feel like I had to do so much more to make it myself valuable to those partnerships that we could push to the next level. Like I didn't want to get stuck in just boyfriend, girlfriend, because then it wouldn't be a real relationship in my world. So I hid it, or like it would take me a while to share it. And I did have a partner who wasn't proud of it. And that hurt. It's not that they didn't like it. They just didn't ask questions. They weren't very curious about it. It was my business. It was like a don't ask, don't tell kind of experience.
Which we all know
it hurts.
Is a breeding ground for shame.
Yeah. And I felt ashamed about it. Yeah, you're right. Like looking like that is what I felt. And then over time, as my confidence grew, so did their discomfort around the topic, and they were able to share it more with the people in their lives. And then ergo, I felt better. But that was bananas that I had to rely on someone else feeling comfortable to feel more comfortable.
Right.
So now I'm just like, first or second date, it's like, so I'm a sex worker. Hi, here's my website. Here's my Instagram. And then most of the responses have been, oh, super cool.
Nice.
Super cool. Yeah. And some of them even offer to help. I had a partner help me go over questions today.
Oh,
I had another partner go over marketing stuff. I have many partners offering, hey, do you need help making content? I'm like, eat a bag. Are you actually going to do the work, or are you just going to lay there? Oh, you want to lay there?
Help?
Thanks for all the help, bruh.
Yeah.
Because they don't know how much lighting and camera work does. And I'm like, dude, it's not going to be fun for you.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
And what's it called? Yeah, the overwhelming support I've had from current partners, because I feel confident in it. They're able to accept it better. And the stigma is starting to fade, at least in our local area, in Seattle, Bellevue area. I don't know about Bellevue, but maybe Seattle. At least Seattle. And I think I became okay with my practice. And that was what changed it for my partners. Because when I first revealed it to that first partner who wasn't comfortable, I can recognize that I wasn't comfortable yet. So how could they feel comfortable?
Yeah. And how you are going to explain it to them and how you're going to portray it to them is going to be affected by your own comfort level with it.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And I had this elaborate backstory for what my real job was. And now I don't even know how to say that backstory anymore, because I just tell people what I do.
I forgot.
Yeah, I only have so many brain cells left. Okay, they're like bing bong, bing bong. They're doing their best, and I can't lie anymore. It's actually really hard for me to lie these days.
Yeah,
because that takes so much extra effort.
It's a lot of energy.
It's so much. And it's not fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then you get caught in the lie, the fear is there. And the excitement, I think, is because I used to lie a lot more covering stuff up, not outright lie. But I would cover stuff up because then I could make a persona, or I could make a story about myself that I felt like I could be proud of. When in reality, I could have just been proud of myself.
And if they rejected your persona, they weren't rejecting you.
Oh, yeah. That's a really big one. It's safer, but it's so much worse it's so much worse to live behind that mask.
Mm-hmm.
And now I see myself as multifaceted rather than wearing multiple masks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think that makes sense. I think I'm curious, what do you wish were different about sex work?
Is this like the starter for the next?
Yeah. This is the lead-in for the next
This is lead-in for the next 2 hours.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
I will say that, of course, we all, many of my peers all agree that it needs to be decriminalized. It's been decriminalized in other countries. It's worked out. They've decriminalized weed, at least statewide for the good ones. And look how much income that brought the states. Could you imagine how much like income it could bring if sex workers could report their income, actually have a steady paycheck, afford to rent apartments? So one of the hardest things for me was like, I report most of my income because I have to be able to afford to live in Bellevue.
You have to fill out applications.
Yeah. And like, even my accountant was just like, why are you paying this much? And I was like, because it's the right thing to do. And then she laughed in my face, and then I laughed, and then like and then the stack of cash laughed.
Yeah.
But yeah, if we were able to decriminalize it and I was able to put out content to educate people without feeling like that was alone illegal, then maybe we could really change not only the sex workers' experience, but the client's experience.
Totally.
I've had so many guests come to me and say how they felt scared and unsafe to go to providers. And the reason why they would choose me is because, one, I have a legitimate website, www.valeldritch.com. And because I would post so much on my Instagram, Val Eldritch. And they could see that I was a real person, that I was working for myself, and that I emphasized connection over just like a cut and dry session. And that made it safe for them to see me. And they would tell me these horror stories of seeing, of going somewhere expecting to see one person, seeing someone else, going somewhere, seeing the pimp, going somewhere, feeling unsafe to leave their car. Yeah, because a lot of these sex workers have to rent out of the shadiest hotels. Like, there are forums where they say, this hotel doesn't have cameras. How fucking unsafe is that?
So
like,
unsafe.
the fact that they feel like that's a boon for their practice, rather than I'm like, okay, how many cameras can I install in like 2,000 square feet? Oh, this one can see straight into your butthole. But yeah, I just went on a major tangent, but so many benefits if it was decriminalized, just so many good things for so many good people. And the people who don't want it decriminalized, I want to know what their logical reasons are, you know? It's, where are they at this point in time?
Yeah, I think there's also an important point to make that, at least for me, there's harm reduction in sex work and harm reduction in drug use. And there's a really important differentiation, and we've sort of gotten it reversed in the societies that have been more allowing, which is that what you need to do is decriminalize sex work, but legalize drugs.
Ooh.
Because legalization means that there's a governing body potentially over your body if sex work is legalized versus decriminalizing it. But drugs, we need clean supplies of drugs so that people have safe things that they're putting in their bodies. And that's a very different thing. And that needs to be regulated. And so decriminalizing sex work is absolutely the answer, in my opinion. I think that it's really important for sex workers to feel and be protected under the law.
Yeah. And Absolutely. It saves time for the police force. Why are they focusing on taking down individual practitioners? Absolutely take down the exploitative rings that are harming actual individuals.
For sure. Yeah.
However, why would they waste time on the Johns who just need a hug or some cuddles and touch? Like, there's other things we need to be worried about.
Yes, it's so
And
true.
I'm glad that you mentioned drug use, because that's another thing that I think is very related to sex work.
Mm-hmm.
It is very easy to get lost in drugs or substances while doing sex work. And they're very correlated, I believe. Like when I was a stripper, when I first auditioned, I was 20 years old. And I was so nervous to get up on that stage. And the owner said, "Hey, would you like a shot of vodka to feel more comfortable?" And I said, "No, I'm just a baby."
Yeah.
Because like I drove myself there, I had to drive back. I hadn't really drank that much yet. I was like, okay, sex work isn't scary for me, but drinking is sex work. That's crazy. What are you just
scary.
offering this for me?
Mm-hmm.
And like she was like trying to justify, like, oh, they all do it, like for their first editions. It helps you loosen up. And then they also offered free, many of the clubs I worked at offered free or reduced drink prices for the dancers. Or they'd be in the bathrooms smoking weed. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying and relaxing, but we were working.
Right.
But it's like normalized that if a sex worker is working, they can be as inebriated as they want. Whereas for me, I will try and never be like, if I smoked a joint before early in the day
Yeah.
and I have a late night session, that's about as inebriated as I'll be.
Yeah.
Because for me to not be fully present in a session, I feel like is a disservice to my guests and a disservice to myself, because I put myself at higher risk. But how many sex workers are using substances so that they can get through their day?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot. And I mean, honestly, how many not sex workers, how many just people, we just did a podcast on sex and substances, and it's remarkable how many of us are using substances, especially alcohol, just to get through sex in a normal everyday life, much less when it's part of your job.
Yeah.
So I think that the substance use part is definitely another conversation, but it's huge and important. I think another thing like that I wish were different is that for online work,
Yeah.
the platforms are so exploitative.
Oh my gosh.
They charge so much fucking money.
Yeah.
It's like 40 to 60% of your take goes to the company. And that's all fine at the very beginning when you're just getting new clients. But when you have regulars,
Yeah.
and you're like, wait, so every time that they come back to me to see me, I'm paying you 60%. So, and I mean, OnlyFans has the best rates, but OnlyFans doesn't advertise for you at all. So you have to do 100% of your own marketing.
Wait, it doesn't like show up as like he suggested people?
They have like a limited amount of that they do, but for the most part, you have to do 100% of your own
like
marketing.
On other platforms?
Yeah, you have to be on Twitter. You have to be all around advertising yourself.
They took down the sex worker Twitter, didn't they?
Did they?
I thought so.
I didn't know that.
Oh.
Oh.
I know they've been like cracking down on a lot of stuff.
Have they? Okay. I didn't know that, but that's the thing with OnlyFans. It's only 20%, but you have to do all of your own marketing. So that really sucks. But I've fantasized about creating my own platform, which is something that would be more like reasonable and fair for the actual value that they're offering. Because listen, it's 2024. Like, webcams are not new technology. None of this shit is new technology. Live streaming is not new technology. None of this stuff should be expensive. The security involved also shouldn't be expensive, considering how minimal it actually is when you experience what they're doing. So that's
Have you
one
explored
thing.
it yourself?
A little bit. I have.
Yeah. How accessible was it for you? Because you're pretty tech savvy. Like.
I think, here's what I think. I think that if you could get quality tech workers on board for a project that involves sex work, you could do it very easily and very quickly. I think the problem is there's so much stigma that people don't want to say that they worked for a camming platform or a sex work platform.
Do you think that it should be one platform that many providers get on, or do you think provider or cammers should start figuring out how to make their own websites?
The more that they can do it themselves, I think the better.
Yes.
Because these companies really are not offering much. They really are not. The challenge of that is marketing. So I think what you would need is unified marketing.
Because it sounds like you're marketing already.
Yeah, but you could have separate platforms and unified marketing. You don't have to own the actual interaction, to own the marketing. But that's just a random thought.
It's a lot to think about.
That's
just
my business
like
brain.
The online stuff. I
Yeah.
haven't even touched it because I'm terrified. Like I have a website, but I use it for forums and for sharing information and reviews with people. God forbid I have actual stuff to sell on it.
Yeah.
Woof. Like I will say that I think in-person meetings, while scarier, is less work intensive.
Yeah, it could be. It's like higher risk but less work intensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's that balance in sex work that people have to find. Did we want to talk about how sex work doesn't really have to include sex?
Oh, I think that's really important.
Yeah. I'd like to
Yeah.
close on that.
Yeah.
Unless you want to talk about more.
I'll just briefly say I did sex work and never had sex with anybody for money.
Yeah. That's what
So-
I really want to emphasize
Yeah.
is that sex work does not mean that you need to have fluid exchange. It doesn't mean that you penetration. Yeah. Sex work, like how do we want to define it? Because like help me with this. It's work that involves a sexual nature.
Yeah, work of a sexual nature, I think is the broadest and most accurate way to define it.
Thank you. Because like I actually just like literally right before coming here, as I was talking over this interview, I didn't realize one of my partners didn't know I didn't have intercourse with clients.
Oh,
I was like,
yeah.
What do you mean I don't know that? I thought I told you what I do. And he was like, yeah, but you never know. And I was like, what do you mean you never? I told you, dude. I told you, dude.
Yeah.
Look at it.
Yeah.
But like this was someone very close to me, someone who listens actually really well. But I don't think that he didn't hear or didn't understand out of maliciousness. I think it's a genuine fear that people have, or not fear, but assumption that they make.
Probably both.
Yeah. And especially from a romantic partner, right?
Yeah.
They need to be prepared. They need to, as much as they can accept me for who I am and love me for who I am, it doesn't mean that they won't take precautions to be safe in their own lives. And I want that for them. That's why I never want to hold back about who I am and what I do.
Right.
So I want them to do their own risk assessments. But the fact that someone that close to me, that educated, that listens that well, didn't know that I don't have penetration for myself. Like I'm taking behymens for sure. I'm collecting them left and right. But that doesn't mean that I have to take it. Like that's not what I've chosen to do with sex work, and I'm not disparaging anyone who does. But if we can talk about it more and make sex work more accessible, because there are people who need to go into this line of work because maybe they need the finances and they don't have opportunities for them, but they don't have to go straight to escorting if that's not right for their body, if that's not right for their emotional capacity, because that escorting does take a lot.
Yeah.
And maybe they could start with FBSM. Maybe they can enter into doming. Not fin doming. That's not real. Stop asking me about fin doming. All y'all, what is that? It's not real. Like 0.0001% are into fin doming. Get out of my face. It's a PSA. I just need people to stop asking me about fin doming.
I get it.
Wait, have you had
too
that?
good to be true. Oh, yeah.
Have people asked you about fin doming?
Yeah, and it was suggested. It's like, this is what you should be doing. This is the thing. Da 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 da. And it's like, well, okay. First of all, ethics is like a fucking huge question when it comes to fin doming. And
yeah, I've actually declined guests because I'm like, hey, I actually know about your financial situation right now. Let's take a breather.
Yeah.
I'd rather you keep your house and then see me when you're feeling better and doing better. Like, I'll text and email to keep you updated. You can look at my Instagram and stuff. But dude, don't take out a second mortgage to see me.
Right.
I'm not comfortable with that.
Right.
I am not comfortable with that. And if people are, okay, but maybe, like, look into your ethical boundaries and know at what point fin-doming might not be comfortable for you anymore.
Yeah, I've thought it through a lot. I watched a documentary about it for this gal in Portland who does it, and she gave a talk about it as well. And she has some lines that she arbitrarily draws about what is or isn't okay. I don't think it's that easy or that simple.
It's not easy. And if anything, sometimes that work is way more than the work we're doing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because to get to that stage requires such a building of trust. Like, the people who are ready to just throw wads of cash are usually the people who need to throw wads of cash. And I'm not saying it's like everyone, but sometimes, like, if you need to pay someone to pay attention to you in that regard, because they're just genuinely not enjoying their time with you,
Right.
maybe that experience is not going to be fun for you as a provider.
Yeah. No, that's true. I think fin-doming is actually, that's worthy of its own episode. It's a fascinating subject.
Do you know any fin-domers? Like you said,
I do know a secondhand connection with somebody who's a big player in that scene, and I'm super curious.
I want to know so bad.
Yeah, I do too.
Because they feel like mythical unicorns to me.
They do feel like mythical unicorns, and I still don't understand, even having watched her talk and watching her talk through her process for the ethics, it doesn't quite calculate to me. But
yeah.
But anyways, all right. Well, we got to wrap up. We could go on for 3 more hours, except this room is really hot.
Sweating like a sex worker in church.
That's right. Sweating like a sex worker in church. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'm sure that we'll be picking up this conversation again later. All right. Mwah.
Kisses.
Thank you for listening to the Joosi Sex Podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, kindly click like and subscribe. It really helps us get the word out. And we'll see you next time.